Japan is a paradox, a nation of high technology, high speed, high precision, yet it honors things that are old, chipped, imperfect, while many societies pursue absolute perfection. Japan instead accepts imperfection. Is that only aesthetics? Or is it a social mechanism? Wabi-sabi is often understood as emotion, as a slow lifestyle, as acceptance in the face of failure. But in reality, wabi-sabi is not a vague concept. It is the way a society confronts impermanence, material limits, and the fragility of life. This video does not tell personal stories, does not seek inspiration. We will analyze wabi-sabi as a real social structure. Part 1: The pressure of impermanence in Japanese life, natural disasters, limited resources, and the unsustainability of material things. Part 2: Wabi-sabi operates as a system of social aesthetics, from architecture, objects of daily use, to rituals. And Part 3: Wabi-sabi in modern society, production, consumption, repair, and sustainability. If you want to understand why imperfection can sustain a modern society, stay until the end of the video. Part 1: Survival pressure and living conditions that shaped wabi-sabi. Wabi-sabi did not emerge as an aesthetic choice. It did not begin from art, but began from a problem of survival. How can a society continue to exist long-term when stability is never guaranteed? To understand this, we must look directly at the living conditions that shaped society for many centuries. According to the Japan Meteorological Agency, Japan lies entirely on the Pacific Ring of Fire. This is a region with the highest concentration of seismic activity on the planet. Every year, thousands of small earthquakes are recorded, and many with strong magnitude, accompanied by tsunamis, tropical storms, volcanoes, and flash floods, repeating across generations. In this context, there is no concept of long-term stability. Houses, villages, tools, and infrastructure are always in a state of being able to be destroyed. This creates a very specific social pressure. No physical structure can be considered permanent. Alongside natural disasters is pressure from resources. According to the Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry of Japan, more than 90% of raw materials must be imported. This causes production costs and replacement costs to remain high. In pre-modern society, the continuous act of discarding the old to create the new was not feasible economically. Objects had to be used for a long time, be repaired, be reinforced, and be adapted. From these conditions, a social mechanism began to form. According to historical documents of Japanese production, many craft industries were organized around the ability to extend the life cycle of objects. Objects were not evaluated based on their original flawless state. but based on their ability to continue being used. Over time, cracks, wear marks, and repair traces were not seen as defects, but as evidence of the process of existence. When this behavior was repeated across generations, it was no longer an individual choice, but became a social norm. Value did not lie in always being new, but lay in the ability to endure over time. The influence of this mechanism did not stop at objects, it penetrated into collective thinking. According to the Statistics Bureau of Japan, Japan is one of the societies aging the fastest in the world. Population decline, a shrinking labor force, a growth model based on continuous replacement became unsustainable. In that context, Wabi-sabi does not operate as an artistic concept, but as a mechanism that adjusts social expectations. It helps society reduce pressure to always be new, always perfect, and always growing. Aging, wear, and incompleteness are viewed as normal states, not signs of failure. This is not an emotional choice, but an adaptation to living conditions that are unstable over the long term. If you lived in a society where houses, objects, and plans could be destroyed at any moment, what would you choose? Continue chasing perfection and constant replacement, or build a value system that accepts imperfection to survive long term? Share your perspective in the comments so that we can see how different societies have confronted impermanence in different ways. Philosophy. Wabi-sabi is not aesthetics, but the way a society exists when perfection cannot last. Part 2. Wabi-sabi as a social mechanism. Wabi-sabi is often misunderstood as a style, an emotion, or a philosophy of a spiritual nature, but if it only stopped at beauty, Wabi-sabi could not have survived in a modern society under pressure. Like Japan, Wabi-sabi did not emerge from abundance, but from limits, limited resources, frequent natural disasters, an aging population, prolonged slow growth. In that context, Japanese society cannot operate based on a logic of maximization and continuous replacement. Another mechanism was forced to form. Wabi-sabi, therefore, is not a cultural choice, but an adaptive mechanism, so that society does not erode itself. From this point, we no longer see Wabi-sabi as an idea, but as a mechanism that helps society exist resiliently under long-term pressure. In Japanese society, Wabi-sabi cannot be separated from structural economic conditions. According to the Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry of Japan, Japan is heavily dependent on imports of energy and raw materials. This makes production costs and replacement costs remain high and highly volatile. In that context, a consumption model based on rapid disposal creates risk. At the societal scale, continuous replacement is not only costly, but also increases external dependence. Therefore, society is forced to develop a different logic. Objects are not discarded, simply because they lose aesthetic appeal. Value is attached to the ability to maintain functional use. According to historical documents of Japanese production, many industries are organized around repair, maintenance, and extending the life cycle of objects. This is the foundation that allows wabi-sabi to enter economic life, rather than remaining a mere concept. When a logic is sustained over a long period, it does not only shape material things, but restructures how people evaluate value. According to Japanese sociological analyses, wabi-sabi helps society distinguish between wear and failure, between natural limits and defects that must be eliminated. In daily life, Japanese people prioritize stability over acceleration. Relationships are evaluated by durability rather than visibility. According to the Statistics Bureau of Japan, Japan is one of the societies aging the fastest in the world. Wabi-sabi, in that context, helps society adjust collective expectations, not viewing slowing down as failure. This is a factor that reduces conflict between reality and desire, and maintains social cohesion over the long term. If at this point you realize that wabi-sabi is not a distant concept, but is quietly operating in the very way society exists, support this analytical journey with a subscription, or share the video with someone who is exhausted by the pressure to always be perfect. Your presence helps us continue dissecting social structures that are rarely seen. When a society accepts limits instead of denying them, expectation pressure is lowered. According to studies on social stability, systems that can self-adjust internal expectations are less likely to experience sudden rupture. Wabi-sabi does not create rapid growth, but creates the ability to survive over the long term. It allows society to live with wear, to live with slowing down, instead of self-destructing under goals that cannot be sustained. This is why wabi-sabi does not need to be promoted. It is maintained by the very effectiveness of the system. Are you living in a society that encourages repair or replacement, accepts limits, or denies them? In your view, what helps a society last longer? Share your observations in the comments so that we can compare together different social models. Philosophy. Wabi-sabi does not make society perfect. It helps society avoid collapsing from obsession with perfection. Part 3. Wabi-sabi as a central pillar of modern society. If Part 1 established the conditions of existence, and Part 2 demonstrated wabi-sabi as a social mechanism, then Part 3 moves into its central role, where wabi-sabi is no longer a passive reaction, but becomes operational infrastructure. In modern society, pressure does not come from absolute scarcity, but from excess information, excess choices, excess expectations. In that context, a society that does not control how value is evaluated will quickly erode itself? Wabi-sabi, in Japan, is integrated across multiple layers, from production, consumption, to governance, and education. In production, the standard of perfection is not understood as a flawless surface, but as the ability to function reliably. According to Japanese production analyses, many companies prioritize durability, repairability, and long life cycles over continuous replacement. This reduces pressure on supply chains, reduces risk of external dependence, and increases system autonomy. In consumption, wabi-sabi slows down replacement cycles. Objects are repaired, kept, and used again. According to Japanese environmental statistics, rates of repair and reuse are higher than in many industrial nations. This is not random individual behavior, but a social norm, reinforced over time. In governance, wabi-sabi influences how goals are set. Society does not pursue overheated growth, but prioritizes long-term stability. According to Japanese socioeconomic reports, Japan accepts periods of low growth while maintaining quality of life. This is a structural choice, not accidental stagnation. Wabi-sabi in education shapes how mistakes are viewed. Errors are not erased, but recorded as part of the process. According to Japanese educational studies, students are encouraged to understand causes rather than hide mistakes. This creates a generation that does not fear imperfection and does not need to constantly prove its value. At a deeper level, wabi-sabi adjusts collective psychology. When society allows slowing down, wear, and limits, pressure for self-optimization decreases. According to Japanese social psychology analyses, this is a factor that helps society maintain stability in the context of population aging and global volatility. Wabi-sabi, therefore, does not stand outside modernity. It is a way of organizing modern life, different from growth models based on rapid disposal and accelerated consumption. In a world facing environmental crises, crises of trust, and crises of expectation, many societies begin to ask again how to exist long-term without self-destruction. Wabi-sabi shows another possibility, not denying limits, but integrating limits into system design. For Japan, this is not a symbolic choice, but a condition for continued operation. When a society no longer has a young population, no longer has high growth, the ability to accept imperfection becomes a structural advantage. Wabi-sabi, in its central role, keeps society from falling into a spiral of self-negation. It allows society to reassess, adjust, and continue without constantly destroying. To renew. Are you living in a society that encourages infinite optimization or allows enoughness? In your view, which model helps a society go further in this century? Share your perspective. In the comments? Philosophy. Wabi-sabi does not make society stronger. It helps society avoid breaking under the weight of its own expectations. Outro. We have gone from survival pressure in a small nation to the way a society records itself, not through military power, not through economic scale, but through data systems, through texts, and through discipline of recording. Japan shows that a society does not endure by denying limits, but by integrating them, remembering correctly, remembering sufficiently, and remembering continuously. When a society does not let others write its story, it retains the right to define itself and the right to exist across generations. In the modern world, where information flows every second, memory fragments, and truth is easily distorted, the case of Japan is no longer only about Japan. It is a warning, and also a suggestion, that any society that refuses to invest in memory will slowly lose itself. The final question is not about Japan, it is about you, the society you live in, your family, the organization you belong to. How are they being remembered? And by whom? If there is no clear system of record, what will remain after a few generations? If you believe these analyses bring value, consider subscribing to continue this journey, because in every next video, we do not tell stories, we dissect the structures that operate modern societies. Your presence is the most important support to ensure this journey does not break. Thank you for staying until the final minutes. See you again in the next analyses, where we continue to ask questions about how societies are built and how they are remembered.